Okay, welcome to back to the radio room. Had a few technical difficulties out here in the radio room. I was working on the 817. If you'll remember, we had this radio on the workbench a little ways back, trying to get it back among the living. I had the corrosion on the board causing the problem, and which made a component fail. The electromagnetic interference filter had gotten corroded and didn't work, and we bypassed the wire, or bypassed that with wire, and got the radio working again. Well, I fixed this radio. Actually, the work's already done. So
Either side of 14.300 megahertz. We would
so you can hear it's working right here. Tune around a little bit. I actually made a contact on this not too long ago to a POTA station in Colorado on 20 meters. Unfortunately, I made a video of all the repair, and there wasn't any audio. Oh, wrong microphone set as the audio input device. I've noticed my system every once in a while will change the setting, change it to a different microphone where there's no audio input going in. So I did about an hour video with no audio, and obviously I just haven't quite gotten my time machine completed yet. The flux capacitor is giving me some problems, and of course the 1.21 gigawatts of power I'm a little shy on. But I have the video, so here's the plan. I'm gonna put the video up. And I've done this on one other video, just not the entire video. And I'll do some narrating. So we might jump around a little bit in the video while we're watching it, just because I think it'll flow better with narration at the time. But so don't check your subtitles. This isn't the commentary track for the movie. It's just me trying to fill in exactly what was going on with the video while we're watching it. So pour your favorite beverage, and if it's a special type of beverage, drink one for me, because this was quite frustrating to go successfully through this repair and have no audio. So like I said, grab a snack, pop some popcorn, sit down with your favorite beverage, and let's get into this. I'll go ahead and bring it up onto the screen, and we'll get to watching it here. So here's the beginning of the video, and I'll go ahead and start this. We'll see if we can't get through here. It's basically just overviewing basically everything I just said. Look, there's the new part ordered from DigiKey, the little EMI filter. That little puppy right there is what stopped the whole radio. Not very big, but very important. And I'll probably skip through some of this because obviously I cannot remember everything I said about anything, but this is the exact part that I did order for this radio. It's an exact replacement. Fortunately, I did find the part number in the technical manual, and it's still available. Several places I got this one from DigiKey. The filter was about $3. That's about $3 right there. And the shipping actually cost more than the item. It costs $6 something just to ship it. So let's see if we can't skim forward a little bit here and get to the meat and bones of it. Okay, I'm going to go over some tools here that I'm going to use for this, because remember this board had some corrosion in it. And I wanted to be able to clean some of that off. So what I have here is it's actually a fiberglass bristle brush. Um, as you can see right there, it's just really densely fiberglass bits on the end of that. I think this might be good for maybe cleaning up traces, cleaning corrosion or tarnish off of stuff. It's a long fiberglass brush inside there, and it's hard. It's not like little bristles. So I'm really expecting this thing to wear away. As you can see, you can kind of adjust the length of it there, but it will wear away. So you just kind of brush it off, and we'll see if we can't shine up some of the stuff that's inside of there. I really wish I'd had the audio for this. I cannot remember everything I had done. But we want to get in there and take a look at cleaning up some of the corrosion around where that EMI filter is. I'm suspecting there's quite a bit underneath the filter. So that's something I bought off of Amazon for cleaning off traces and stuff. I think this is going to come in really handy, especially if I'm needing to remove some of the conformal coating off of a board. Say a trace has gotten broke, and I need to run a new trace to something. I can clean off the protective coating on the board and get down to bare copper and solder a jumper or something into a trace. So I'm not really sure what I was doing right there. Let's skim forward a little bit. Now I'm going over. I ordered some new stuff. I've never used this stuff before. It's conformal coating, silicone conformal coating. As you can see right there, MG 422C silicone conformal coating pen. After I get everything cleaned off, I want to be able to protect those traces from further oxidation, further corrosion or anything. Basically replace the protective coating that was on the board. And that's what I'm going to do with that pen. So this is kind of an experiment in doing all this as well. I just want to be able to protect what I clean off a little bit if I can get into everything. So we're going to have to get into the radio again, take it apart, and come back and see if we can't replace this thing. Apparently I talk a lot. So I've gotten the board out, dismantled the radio, gotten the board out. If you remember, this is the board we had right here, and right there is that filter that got etched, and of course that's the jumper wire that I put in to see if the radio was even going to work. That's just bypassing that filter where it got corroded, and I believe the wire broke inside of there. So we need to get that off of there. There's 4 pins that I've got to get out of there. I'm hoping at this point in time that it's not soldered on both sides. At some point in time I do want to get a desoldering vacuum gun, which will make getting stuff out here a lot easier. But you can see kind of right in there where it's basically I think it's broken that one wire on that one side to that pin, and that's why the power wasn't going through there. Both sides, the positive and negative of the power for the radio, run through this filter, one on each side, 2 pins for each side. So first off, we need to get that jumper wire that I placed in there several months ago out of there. Cleaning up my soldering iron, I believe, right now. Yep, and retinning it. I'm going to have a nice clean soldering iron while I'm doing this. Make life a lot easier and keep the board cleaner. We'll just get this wire out of here first thing. to see about getting that filter block out of there. Like I said, 4 pins. That's a pretty populated portion of the board right around one of those pins. 3 of them are fairly easy to get to. At first I was thinking, I'll use some solder wick on it, see if I can't wick it out of there, and then see if it'll come out. So I'm just cleaning up the solder wick there. I very quickly changed my mind and decided, why don't I use the, well, first off, got to get my my eyeballs on here. I'd been using them, but they'd gotten dirty. I was trying to look through some smears. Well, I'm cleaning them up right here real quick. And then I decided, what? Yeah, I think I'm gonna probably just use the desoldering pump. Of course, I'm looking at the rest of the board, kind of making sure everything's where I think it is. I'll go ahead and get that desoldering pump. I think this will work a lot better. Get most of the solder out of the way all at one time without having to heat the board too much with the solder wick, especially with some rather small components around it. So let's go with the first pin here and see if we can if we can't get this desoldered. And that actually cleaned off real well. It sucked most of the solder off all in one shot right there. Of course, I'm digging around for my little container I usually dump the solder out of this pump with. So I'm having to grab it. Just a plastic container that I put the old solder into. You can see quite a bit fell out of there, and there's quite a bit from some previous projects. Not that I'm keeping this for anything in particular, that's just trash, but that seems to be a good spot to put the old solder, especially when you're desoldering a lot of stuff, and you don't want to just reach down for the trash can every 5 minutes. And going for pin number 2. That one cleaned up fairly well. Clean my soldering iron up and re-tin it. It actually sucked most of the tinning off of the soldering iron that last time. And going for pin number 3. That one didn't quite clean up as good as I wanted it to, but it didn't do too bad. I did have a little bit of a splatter of some solder that crossed over the board, and that's something you definitely want to keep an eye out for. That little piece of solder going across there could cause some really major problems, so I'm trying to get the tweezers and get it out of there. It's about the size of a piece of thread. I don't know, probably 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. I'm trying to show it to you here. That can cause some pretty good problems. You can kind of see it there a little bit. I'm trying to get it in the light right. And yeah, so you can see it right there. That would have caused some problems if it had been left on that board. Shorted some stuff out. So, and we're going to move on to the last pin here in just a moment. Which is in a little bit more of a populated area of the board. It's got some small surface mount components around it. actually cleaned up fairly good as well. Sucked most of the solder out. I'm just trying to see if the pins are loose. See if it's moving. It didn't really seem like it was free yet, so I figured, okay, at this point I'm going to try and walk it out. I'm basically just going to put some gentle pressure on it like that, and try to kind of lift one side of it up. I might have to heat it up, and so I'm just kind of holding it and putting some gentle pressure to the side on it right there, and I'm just going to holding it and then pushing the board like that, trying to rock it a little bit, and I'll take the soldering iron and hit one of those pins again and see if it doesn't lift those legs out a little bit. This was actually not holding on as much as I thought it was. As soon as I did it, it rocked those two pins completely out of there. But it wasn't still free yet. One of the other pins was still holding on just a little bit, even though it had actually moved. So I just heated up one of the other pins and trying to do this without touching those other components, and it fell right out of there. So that's the old one out now. And this thing was pretty ugly from the bottom. You can see all that corrosion, all that gray, hairy looking stuff on there, especially that one pin. And that's the side that was basically dead. So I'm thinking that tiny little wire that's hooked to that leg is what the problem was. Coming off that one little coil you can see off to the left there. It's just a tiny fine wire that's hooked to that pin. So I'm guessing that's probably where the problem was, and this thing's pretty much trash. So, and you can see it had a lot of corrosion underneath it. Lots of corrosion built up. Sorry about the camera work there. I was looking at it, trying to get closer, see if that was something I could just wipe off, or if it was something that was going to cause us more problems. Decided a good place to start was probably just get some isopropyl alcohol and Q-tip and wipe it off. See what we can get off from that point. So there's my isopropyl alcohol. I keep it in a little dropper. That was about empty, so I was reaching up to grab my big bottle that I keep it in, and then I just fill that up. That way I can use the dropper and just have a controlled amount instead of spilling a quart of alcohol everywhere. So just give me a moment and I'll fill that up. See if I can't go forward on this just a little bit so we don't have to watch me do that. And I'm just I put the alcohol straight onto the board. Take the Q-tip, get in there and scrub it around. See what we can get out of there. There's lots of surface mount components there, really tiny components right there, so I'm trying to be careful that I don't disturb any of them, especially if any of the contacts are weakened due to the corrosion that was already there. You can see all the stuff that's coming off of there. Some of that's corrosion, some of that's actually rosin flux from the original manufacturing that didn't get cleaned off good. And this is actually cleaning up fairly well. It's got some tarnished portions on it, and I believe it darkened the original factory conformal coating. You'll see that here in a moment, where it actually looks black. But I don't think it's necessarily just tarnished copper. And I'm looking at the backside, seeing if there was anything that came through the holes. I'm just gonna continue cleaning stuff up with the alcohol, getting some of the flux cleaned up on this side of the board. This is the solder side of that component. This is a double-sided board. It does have pass-throughs on it, tiny little pass-throughs. And in fact, the solder points for this component we're replacing are actually also feed-throughs, pass-throughs. So just trying to clean that up a little bit. See if I can't move forward just a little bit here, and we'll take a look at the cleaning of it a little bit better. You can see right there where I'm scrubbing, it looks like a black splotch. Well, that's tarnished copper underneath there from the corrosion, which I'm trying to get some of it off of there. And here in a moment I'm going to use the new brush right there and see if I can't clean some of that off of there. See if I can't get to that point. Mostly just examining it, make sure it doesn't look like there's any further damage really to the board, aside from some tarnishing and some corrosion damage. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get in to do some of this. I didn't really want to start pulling more components off the board. And it looks like I've already brushed it just a little bit there. Move forward just a little bit. So I'm going to go back in with that brush. This brush definitely scrubs stuff off. It does really good, but at the same time, tiny little fibers of fiberglass that almost look like dust come off the end of it as well. I mean, you're abrading the material slightly that you're working on, but at the same time, you are sacrificing some of the tip of the brush at the same time. So just trying to get in there and really scrub it down. Try to get back down to the bare copper. You can barely see right in there. It's actually starting to get down to it a little bit. I'm just adjusting my length on it a little bit, trying to see if I can reach in and get to a solder point that's on a surface mount component that's right there that looked pretty gunky. Lots of scrubbing. I'm just doing light pressure here. I don't want to push too hard. For one, it's not going to do a whole lot more better. It'll just destroy the fiberglass brush quicker. But at the same time, I don't want to wear through any thin points of the traces. I just want to remove the corrosion on top. Not take any more of the original trace than I have to. There's a tiny little inductor just off to the, say the 7 o'clock position of where I'm scrubbing right there that I had to be really careful around. As you can see, it's starting to get rid of the black. They're actually starting to get a little bit of a copper look to everything now. And this is leaving a lot of debris on the board right here. It's going to have to be taken off. It's going to have to be cleaned up. And one of the best ways to do this is actually just a tiny little bit of a vacuum cleaner. You can maybe use a shop vac or something, but with like detail brush to vacuum up the dust that comes off of this. I actually have a different tool that I use. I just got it not too long ago, and it's actually dual purpose. It can act as a tiny little vacuum cleaner, but also the main reason why I got it is it can also be used as a blower. Just depends on which end you put the fitting onto. Well, the reason I got it is if anybody's bought compressed air in the canned air I call it, anytime recently, $8-9 a can, and if anybody's used much of those, you can realize just how quickly you can go through a can of compressed air. Well, $8 a can was getting a little bit a little bit expensive for blowing things out. So this thing right here, I got it in the vacuum setting. I'm hoping I actually put it back into camera here a little bit, but I think I do here in just a moment. But it's just got a little canister portion on it. Let's see if it'll show. See a little canister point with a little filter in it. It's just vacuuming up, and that's the container part right there. Got brushes, whatnot. You can take that off and turn it around. And if you put a little nozzle on the other end of it, you can use it as a blower. And that's the main reason why I got it. You can see it's a pretty good little blower. I got that because this thing cost me about $25. It blows out pretty good. It's not quite as fine of a stream. But for 3 cans of compressed air, I got a rechargeable blower that works pretty good. So as you can see here, it's not black anymore. We've gotten down to the bare copper right there. You can see right around that one component, that potentiometer. It's still pretty dirty, but I was having trouble getting the little fiberglass brush into there. I was mostly concerned about the trace that was going between one of the surface mount, I think it's resistor or diode, and where it connects to that one pin for the EMI filter. And I really wanted to make sure that was cleaned off and looking good, so that the power can flow through there, because otherwise that's where the power is going to stop. So I decided I was going to do a clean a little bit more. I'm trying to get onto that trace that I was just referring to. There's a little spot that was really black, and it didn't want to seem like it wanted to come off very easily. And I want to try and get it down to bare copper and actually check to make sure that it's still a good wide contact or trace, so that it doesn't fail too soon in the future. This radio, once this has happened, I wouldn't doubt it if I have problems with it again in the future. Sometimes when this corrosion starts, it's hard to get it to ever stop unless you can completely neutralize the whole board and everywhere that it's gotten it. That stuff soaks up into things. So this is more of an experiment in doing a little bit of repair of this type. The radio, as you've seen at the beginning of this video, is working. I did make a contact with it. I really wish I had gotten that, had audio on that. It's at the end of what we're watching right here, but you can't even tell that anything's happening. So I'm gonna clean out some more of that dust that I just created in there. Try to clean this area up really good. Just being gentle. It does have a brush on the end of it. Being gentle and vacuuming that up. Kind of vacuum off any loose fiberglass or dust pieces on the end of the fiberglass brush. Now I'll also take some alcohol and clean this off as well. Try to get anything that I missed from the vacuuming. But the main reason why I'm vacuuming it is I don't want to touch that area while I got that on there. If anybody's ever handled fiberglass insulation or anything, those tiny little fibers you don't want to get in your finger. You're not pulling them out. So at this point in time, I'm checking that one trace that I was concerned about. I want to make sure that there's good continuity and that I haven't damaged the trace by brushing it, because that's where the power does come through from a little surface mount that I'm touching right there to the pin where the EMI filter goes, and it checked out good. Just getting a good close look at everything, making sure that nothing else looks too much damaged. Here in a moment we'll clean this up around there. Most of that coppery area, the bright spot that you see there, is mostly what's called the ground plane of the board. It doesn't actually connect to the EMI filter or that other component that I was checking against. But it is something that needs to be cleaned off, and we're going to protect it. Right now, just giving it a good cleaning. Get all the corrosion dust out of there, all the fiberglass dust out of there. I'm trying to neutralize this part of the board as much as possible. So I'm probably going to take some alcohol and I'm literally going to flush it. Alcohol is pretty safe on electronics. Obviously, you don't want to try to get it inside of inductors, stuff like that. That's, you know, adjustable inductors. They don't necessarily hurt it. It's just it takes forever to dry out. And that's the great thing about alcohol. It dries very quickly, and it does not leave a residue. So that's why I suggest that you use at least 91%. They also have 99% alcohol. It's a mild solvent, but it usually won't damage anything, and it dries completely. Still trying to get that one spot there. It was just this one little spot that I really just wanted to make sure it was clean, so it wouldn't continue to eat that trace. I'm going to move forward ahead in the video just a little bit. See if we can't get to the point where we're going to do the conformal coating. We're just doing a last cleanup on it. I believe this is the last cleanup on it. And we'll wash it down with alcohol good. Before we put the conformal coating on it to protect the bare copper that we now have on the board. Go ahead and move forward, see if we can get to the conformal coating. Now see, that's that trace that I was talking about a moment ago. I'll pause this a second. You'll see right in here, it's nice and clean. This whole area right here is clean. This is where all of the corrosion had worn, had eaten through the conformal coating and had tarnished the copper below it. And this trace right here, I was really concerned about. This component right here, the power comes from the jack and comes through this, down this trace to that pin. And this is the pin that was actually damaged on the filter. So I wanted to make sure this was in really good shape. Previously, if you're looking at one marker, there was a spot right in here I couldn't hardly get cleaned. I kind of feared that it had eaten through and actually really thinned out that. It actually looked pretty good after this. Just talking about that being part of the ground plane of the board. So I'm going to clean everything up here, and then we're going to put the conformal coating on. I've never tried this stuff before, but we'll see if we can't get that protected. It'll put another protected coating over the top of that. The green stuff on most boards, that's what that's called. It's called conformal coating. move forward a little bit in the video here. Oh, let me back up some. Okay, so at this point I'm letting it dry. I paused the video and was letting things dry. So we came back and I was reading the instructions on this, and it really indicated you didn't really want to get this stuff on your skins, so we're not going to get it on our skins. On our skin, wear some gloves just in case. So basically I got to kind of paint this stuff on here. This is almost more like, you know, press type. You know, it's got a little valve on the end of the nozzle. You kind of push down on it, squeeze gently, and it comes out. And you just kind of like flow it out onto the board where you want to put it. So yeah, it's you're supposed to have a nice thin coating on everything. Probably got to get a little practice with this. Got it kind of thick in some spots. Just trying to cover the whole area. This pin will definitely work good on smaller traces where you can just basically draw a line. I'm trying to color in an area basically with it. This stuff comes out clear. And it's probably going to stay clear, I'm assuming. The problem is that it's hard to see unless you get it in just the right light to see if you've gotten everything covered. So basically that's all I'm doing is just going through there and covering over all that. I left a little bit of a spot around the hole that the leg is going to be going through, and trying to get anything that's bare copper kind of covered up, especially that trace that I was referring to and that big blotch of bare copper. So we'll move forward. I worked at this for a little bit. Then we have to sit there and let it dry first. And I'm just checking out to make it look like I've gotten everything covered, trying to get it in the light. Was testing. It looked like I'd almost left a hole right in the middle of everything, and it appeared I did. So I grabbed the conformal coating and kind of filled in that little hole that I'd left. And then I got to let that dry for a little bit. I kind of checked different portions of the board. We're getting ready to put in the new EMI filter. You can definitely tell which one's the old one, which one's the new one, but they're exactly the same size, the same part number, everything. And just kind of taking a look at where it looks like it kind of damaged the really fine wire that was going to the inductor around the toroid. So just gonna put that in here in just a moment, looking at the holes, making sure they're opened up. Not any solder left. They looked good at that point. Just kind of trying to look through the soldered holes. See if we can't put that back in without too much problem. And at this point in the time, the holes look pretty clear. We're going to find out in a moment. One was just a little bit too small. I have to clean that up. Kind of looking at that rust on that shield. I was trying to decide if I wanted to try and clean that up or even get the top of that off and see what was inside. As it turns out, I try to pry it up a little bit and everything. It doesn't want to move. It's basically rusted shut. So I decided against that in fear of damaging anything else. You can see here I'm trying to gently pry it up. It's not happening. I'm flexing the board pretty bad. Didn't want to do any more damage. So like I said, this radio, there could be future problems resulting from this mess, but we'll deal with them as we get to them. I'm sure I had something important to say right here, but I cannot remember what it was. We'll go move forward a little bit. Get to the putting the EMI filter in. I was doing some more cleaning up on some other spots that I found. Mostly just doing this while I was trying to let that conformal coating set up a little bit. I didn't want to stick the EMI filter right over the top of it without it having set some. Still doing some cleaning while I'm waiting for that conformal coating to get a little stiffer. Checking to see if the conformal coating is starting to stiffen up. Just kind of poking at it a little bit, seeing if my solder tool was going into it, and I'm going to try and put it through the holes. Really can't put this thing in backwards, and it's not quite wanting to go through the holes. So I decided, I probably got a hole that's got a little bit of solder left in it. So we'll have to clean that out real quick. We'll just use some solder wick. And that cleaned that up. Just had a little bit of solder we had to wick off of that one hole. Now filter again, see if we can't put it through the holes. And it slid right in. Just going to hold that and find something to put underneath the board to make sure it doesn't slip down out of the holes while we solder it. So we'll just grab some solder wick and stick it underneath there. Get ready to solder that in. We'll find some flux, put a little flux on there. Since there's been corrosion and everything, we want to make sure that area kind of gets cleaned off while we're soldering it. And I had to try and find my nozzle for my bottle, which I couldn't find, and then I remembered where I had it. It's actually in my portable soldering kit, because I had to do some take my portable soldering kit and do some soldering at work. Don't do electronics necessarily for work, but I do all the electronics soldering and stuff at work when needed. So I do have a small soldering kit that I use in case I need to go anywhere. Just put a little drop here is what I was going for. Apparently the nozzle was a little clogged up. I ended up with a little bit more than just a drop that I wanted. But we're ready to solder this piece in now. Just a tip, don't try to tin your soldering iron over a circuit board. That's why you notice I always kind of move towards the back there. You don't want to drop a big blob onto a board and have to try and get it off there later. And that's got it soldered back in. We'll take a look at the solder joints real quick before we move on. And they all looked good. So basically it's cleaned things up and put the radio back together, which I did off camera. So we'll go ahead and move forward a little bit. Here we go. See, the radio is back together. I'm hooking up the power supply. And I'm gonna see if this thing turns on. Hopefully it does. Cross your fingers. Apparently I didn't press the button hard enough the first time. Just trying to figure out what was going on there for a minute. And there it is. It's operational. Trying to see if y'all can see it in the camera. That one camera isn't real good. I'll probably have to change that out. So I switched to my other camera where you can read the screen a lot better. And you can see that it's changing bands. Change modes. And I went ahead and hooked up an antenna to it. And went through the bands on that. I really wish that I had audio here, as we do try to make some contacts. And I'm trying to get the headphone jack, or the external speaker jack, just isn't working real good. Here I'm trying to contact a station, which I actually did manage to reach up in Colorado. It was a POTA station. So I did get a 5-watt POTA contact. Pretty much, it's just in several minutes of fixing the radio. So conditions are working pretty good. That was on 20 meters. Good strong contact. I had him about 10 over S9, and he gave me an S9 reading. And it was a real easy contact. I don't think he had any trouble hearing me. He came back to me immediately. We made the contact, and then he moved on. I think there was several other people that heard me as well. So not bad for 5 watts, really. Just playing with the radio a little bit, kind of going through some stuff. Tried a couple other contacts. I didn't get any other ones, but some of them were DX, and I'm pretty sure I was fighting with some other stations to get through them, and they were probably 100-watt stations at least. So that pretty much brings it back to where we're at here. I'll turn the radio back on. And we can listen to it real quick. I did, by the way, put some cleaner in the jack. So it's working like it's supposed to now. Cleaner and lubricant is what I used. I did spray some of this in here just real quick to clean it, like I've mentioned before. You can use this to clean it, but even potentiometers, carefully, as long as you don't get them on, get that stuff kind of into the shaft where there might be some lubricant. But make sure you follow up on potentiometers. Anything that's going to have moving parts sliding against each other, Right now I use this cleaner and lubricant. The lubricant part is what I'm getting out of this. This you could use on just contacts, that don't have to slide against each other like a potentiometer or even like this where it's got this sliding in and out. It needs a little bit of lubrication. But as you can see, let's actually go up. Oh, that's on AM.
CQ, calling CQ. This is November 1 Mike X-ray, N1NX, November 1 Mike X-ray, listening for a call.
And it's sounding really good.
Calling CQ, calling CQ.
In fact, why don't I see if I can't contact this guy?
X-ray, N1MX, calling CQ, calling CQ. This is November 1 Mike X-ray, N1MX, November 1 Mike X-ray, listening for a call.
See if we can get a quick QSO thing. November 1 Mike X-ray from Kilo Charlie 5 Victor Oscar X-ray for a quick over.
CQ, calling CQ. This is November 1 Mike X-ray, N1MX, calling CQ, calling CQ. This is November 1 Mike X-ray, N1MX, November 1 Mike X-ray, listening for a call.
The Kilo Charlie 5 Victor Oscar X-ray. Well, I don't think he's hearing me. I'm actually, the audio sounds really good, but that's an S1 reading, so I have a feeling things are probably not working in my favor for 5 watts, especially when he's probably a 100 watt plus station coming back and forth. So the FT-817 is back among the living. It's operational. I need to clean it off a little bit. It's gotten a little dusty. But I think it's going to be a fun radio to have back in operation.
And we could even be further, and I'd be okay with that.
Especially with the solar cycle picking up. Even 5 watts, I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with this radio. So, sorry about having to go through the narrated version of the video. I'm probably going to get myself a nice big flashing neon sign that says check your audio settings before I start a video. But like I said, can't go back in time and redo it. I'm not going to put a bad part back in just to take it back out in a video. So like I said, thanks for stopping by and checking out this video. Hope you enjoyed it. A little bit longer than I was planning, but I got to playing while I was making it as well, especially at the end, making some contacts and whatnot, making sure the radio is good. This radio hasn't been operated really in probably 5 or 6 years, so it's back among the living. It's going to go back into the in-use shelf, and it'll probably spend some time out in the field. Once again, thanks for stopping by the radio room. Bye for now.